All right, to whom it may concern, I had done some videos yesterday, which I then deleted. And it's not necessarily because I disagree with the videos. I think, frankly, everything I said in them was accurate, I guess. But I also found I was getting maybe too involved in something that wasn't really my business. It amounted to what you'd maybe call interloping. So I will leave the defense of David Wood, or lack thereof, up to him and whoever he chooses to involve in that. That being said, I do like David Wood, and frankly, I think the incident I went over was, it would be hard to characterize it as. Sorry, I shouldn't be laughing. It wasn't good. It wasn't good, but I think it'd be hard to characterize it as some sort of sexual deviancy on his part, given the factors involved. Uh, Again, not good, but also not the pervert per se. More of a idiot kid doing idiot stuff. Anyways, enough of that. All right. This was a thing I had kind of thought of a while back, though. It's kind of a weird type of thing where it's almost what you would call like Schrodinger's pervert or something, where you're trying to distinguish between an attraction to a physically mature woman and a physically mature young person or underage woman. And it's a bit of a strange topic, but maybe one that's worth going over. So we'll try to discuss this in an abstract sense, disconnected from the more practical, gritty, and divisive applications of it. Anyways, I would explain it this way. If there's a male artist who draws a woman and another guy is attracted to that drawing, is that guy gay? Well, no, not really. The connection to the artist's own physiology is tenuous at best. So, like, the correct representation of the female form is the entire point of it. So, no, he's not really gay. You could take it a step further. What if a guy decides to take HRT, get a whole bunch of surgery, and put on about 50 pounds of makeup to create an aesthetic facsimile of woman, like an impersonation, right? And it's a little bit different because he's embodying it, but I would still say, no, you're not really, like, a guy wouldn't be gay for finding that attractive, because the impersonation is the entire point. They're trying to embody, they're trying to accurately represent, at least on an aesthetic level, they're trying to accurately represent the female form. Believe it or not, there's some guys that are pretty good at it. Now, should you indulge that? No, but I guess that's more of a Christian position. That's but I don't think you should really get involved because it is an impersonation, right? Women are more than the sum of their parts. They're not only physical, they're also psychological and spiritual. We're a multifaceted creation, in my humble estimation. So, no, you should not indulge that attraction. But again, that's a Christian position. So, anyways, moving on. Point being, if you have a young person, male or female, who is physically mature, right? They check all the boxes, they have all the physical markers for biological maturity. Is a person a pedophile for finding that attractive? Well, no, not really. I mean, again, it feels like their attraction to a biological or like a physically mature human of whatever gender, of either gender, um, that is kind of the whole point. And it would be very hard to split hairs between attraction to a physically mature individual, regardless of their age, versus a physically mature adult. Like, to distinguish between those two instinctive drives, to create some sort of delineation there would be almost impossible. Afterthought here. It occurs to me that on some level, there would, in theory, be a way of delineating where you could say that, well, I think correctly, that attraction is not exclusively physical, that it's also psychological. So if there is some sort of perverse psychological dynamic between the adult and the younger person involved, then that would be different. If that makes sense. Now, that being said, should you indulge that attraction? No, you should not. Life is full of people you can't have sex with, including but not limited to physically, you know, mature yet psychologically unprepared young people, right? And there's a myriad of reasons for that. One of them being that psychological maturity does not necessarily coincide with physical maturity. Like psychological development happens quite a bit later. I'm going to guess you could find studies that would like go into the issues that can arise from like a premature type of sexual debut. Um, Not to mention the fact that we aren't animals, right? There are a lot of social conventions that go along with being in a relationship, sexual or otherwise, that children just don't understand yet. And the ostracization or the isolation that can happen if you do that wrong is a thing that really does happen. Not to mention the probable development, if you allow for that sort of thing, the probable development of very one sided and very unequal relationships, like unilateral relationships with an adult and a child. Like, yeah, just self restraint is something all of us have to learn if you want to live in society, it feels like. So, anyways, talking about this thing is the thing that kind of creeps me out, for the record. And it feels like I'm on the edge of breaking something that I really don't want to break, a taboo that it's good that we have this sort of visceral reaction to this. I think that's the appropriate reaction. I think it's an advantageous reaction. I think it's good that we don't like talking about this, that it makes us uncomfortable a little bit. And that's not something I really want to mess with. So this is probably one of the only times I'm ever going to talk about this. But yeah, to whom it may concern, I seen there were a couple of comments on the video I had posted yesterday. So for the record, I'm sure your opinions are very worth hearing. But you understand that from your side, you're an individual expressing individual ideas. At me, from my side, you're kind of the comment section is the ravening horde. So to my concern, I don't really get involved in the comments. At the end of every week, sometimes I'll skim through to see, I guess, maybe if anyone important commented or maybe if something happened. Um, I'm sure your positions are very valid, so feel free to express them again in this comment section and talk about that stuff. But I probably will not either read them or really get involved for the most part. All right, have fun with that. Thanks for watching.